So Kirby and the Forgotten Lands is the latest addition to my video game collection, and the main reason is because my fiance loves Kirby. It's like her favorite character series ever. Me, not really the biggest fan of Kirby, usually. The side-scrolling adventures have been fun to play in co-op as I play through multiple games with her, but the idea of a 3D Kirby that very much gave me the impressions that it might be in a similar vein to something like Super Mario Odyssey had me pretty damn excited. I just wasn't expecting to love this game as much as I did, because I've had fun playing multiple Kirby games in co-op, but I've never loved playing a Kirby game until this one. And I think the great thing about it is it brings in so many newcomers or people who are a little more skeptical in terms of what Kirby had to offer before, but also stays true to what made Kirby so adorable and fun to play to begin with for those long-term fans. The biggest thing that makes this game so great is, one, even if you're playing as single player or if you played in two-player like I did, I played as Kirby, my partner played as Waddle Dee, the idea of traversing these different worlds, and as of the recording of this, we've beaten the main game. There's still the post-game and all the other 50% worth of stuff to complete. But in terms of the main worlds, completing those 100%, all these different levels, we did it all. And seeing the variety of gameplay and how it simultaneously makes you want to stick to one power, but at the same time almost forcing you to switch to a different one, it never becomes a distraction, because all these different abilities, which is one of the things that has made Kirby so appealing for so long. You suck up an enemy, you become them, whether it's a sword, whether it's a bomb, whether it's a big spiky rolling ball that picks up everything in its path. The idea that if you want to complete 100%, because basically the premise of it, it's pretty similar to most games, except this time, you're kind of thrown into a post-apocalyptic world, and your quest is to save the Waddle Dees that are scattered throughout as you build up the Waddle Dee town and more things unlock in the process. As you go through, you have your main base objective, which is to get to the end of the level, and you'll save 3 to 5 Waddle Dees. But then there's hidden Waddle Dees, and then there's hidden objectives, and the likelihood of you doing every single objective your first time every level is slim to none. There's a handful of levels that we got lucky and were able to explore, but sometimes you get these ones where it's like, oh, you have to use an ability in a certain way or discover a path over here. When it comes to the boss fights, they're actually pretty cool. Sometimes you have to do a no damage run, other times defeat them with this, or do a certain move when they're doing a certain move. And it creates this very Mario Odyssey style gameplay, but feeling Kirby through and through. I truly thought walking in and out of this game that I very much would just see it as Mario Odyssey, but with a Kirby skin. And while I think some of the fundamentals, like the idea of how two-player operates, the idea of almost instead of having Cappy in terms of in Mario Odyssey, which allows you to take control of things, instead you just become them by sucking it up. But I like the idea that it very much just feels like, rather than this being a Kirby game that just sticks to the formula that people have come to know and love or know and accept, instead this feels like the next major stepping stone that future Kirby games are going to be referencing in terms of the 3D environment. And from what I've heard, multiple people are saying in terms of the inside Nintendo spectrum that both 2D and 3D Kirbys can coexist together. So I do imagine we'll still have that classic 2D formula, but in terms of Forgotten Lands setting a new standard, this is without a doubt a 10 out of 10 gaming experience for me. Some people have complained it's too easy. To those people I say you've never played a Kirby game, because Kirby games are pretty easy through and through. Though I will honestly argue this is probably the hardest Kirby game if you ask me, mainly because I've played probably through 80% Kirby games that are out there, in terms of, the side-scrollers and things like that. I like them, I just never have been overly in love with them, sort of a thing. But there's two difficulties. You have your kind of baby mode, which, it will be very, very easy, and then they have wild mode. Wild mode's not challenging in this way that you're going to be bashing controllers Elden Ring style. But when it comes to certain challenges, like in terms of no damage runs for certain bosses, that actually can take you a few different tries. And I was playing in two-player, so I had a Waddle Dee companion who would use the spear attack, and it made it easier than if I was doing it solo sometimes. There's definitely a lot of people who are covering this game who maybe aren't the biggest Kirby fans, or at the very least don't understand what Kirby is in terms of a formula. So when you hear it's too easy, you really have to wonder if this is really a Nintendo fan covering the game, when a lot of Mario, Kirby, Yoshi games, they're not the most challenging. It's the aesthetic and the simple gameplay that is so refined that it's hard to put down. And the multitude of abilities makes this game so damn compelling, because not only do you have your base abilities, which there are some fun abilities in this game, like, you have your basic fire attack, but there's upgrades that you'll eventually find these scrolls, and if you have enough of these gemstones, you can upgrade them. You get 3 upgrades for most of these abilities, and when you get certain ones, like you basically become a dragon and you breathe hellfire on people. Or you upgrade the ice ability and you start being able to summon snowman or icicles that you can then shoot at people as you simultaneously are blasting them with a much more effective move. It is so cool to see the upgrades and how it continues to make you want to change your playstyles, and when it forces you to switch to a different ability to complete an objective, you're never rolling your eyes being like, okay, I may have my favorite abilities, but no ability is boring to use. They're all fun in their own way, as you have these different little mini objectives in between the main levels that allow you to earn these gems that allow you to upgrade your abilities. There is kind of like time trials, and most of them are pretty fun. A couple are a little infuriating, but that's kind of nature of the business when you get into things like that. The other big thing that really makes this one a lot different is Kirby doesn't just suck up enemies to get different abilities. He sucks up real-world objects. You become a car. You literally have racing objectives in this game that are fun as shit. You have one of my favorite abilities where you suck up something that's circular and you basically just blast air, or you become a plane and you're doing these aerial maneuvers. There are so many ludicrous things that pop up when you become a pylon and you're doing these drop attacks to break the roads. I thought the idea of Kirby becoming a car or real-world objects would basically change Kirby too much. No, Kirby can become anything and have it be charming as shit, while simultaneously having some of the smoothest gameplay experiences that the Nintendo Switch has to offer. Every control, everything you do in this game, every action, every ability is so seamless in transitions. The levels are not too small, but they're not overly big either. You could go from point A to point B in any of these levels and probably traverse it in less than 2 minutes, we'll say, minute and a half on average. But if you're actually exploring every nook and cranny, which comes naturally if you're playing either alone or with a partner, you're gonna take 3, 5, sometimes even 8 minutes to discover everything this has to offer, and the replayability factor is so goddamn smooth. And it looks absolutely incredible because unlike other games that have come out recently, like say the latest Pokemon game, Legends Arceus, it's not an open world, so they're able to put so much detail in the cutscenes, and you see all the little almost like patterns in the character's clothing or just the general bright, colorful aesthetic. This game is remarkable, and I am not someone who compliments Kirby this much. Mostly, I would say, like the previous, I think it's Star Allies, the latest 2D side-scroller in terms of the Kirby formula on the Switch. That's a fun game. My partner likes it a lot more than me, but it's a fun game to play. But this one right here, this is my bread and butter. This is what I hope to see multiple Kirby games use in the future, as it has an amazing soundtrack, tons of character. When you go into Waddle Dee Town, if you start attacking the Waddle Dees, you're not going to hurt them, but ultimately they're going to pass out because, they're going to faint because you're attacking them. There's minigames like the fishing minigame, which is very basic button mashing, but it's so fun. Or the tilting game, where you have like this little maze ball where you have to either use your controller or the actual Switch, and you have to tilt the board to get the little marble to the objective, right? There's just so much to enjoy and so much replayability, and playing with a partner is so much more enjoyable than playing by yourself, in my humble opinion, because they'll spot things you don't. And even though I think the second player gets the short end of the stick because they don't get upgrades, they don't get different abilities, they still have an attack pattern that does let them be useful rather than a distraction. I just kind of wish that, even though I understand that the second player's Waddle Dee, you can't have 2 Kirbys, I think there would have been a way to maybe upgrade the spear attack with the different abilities. When Kirby gets it, it becomes a completely different new form. But I think Waddle Dee could have walked up to the Dragon Fire and had like a Flame Spear, or an Ice Spear, or a Bomb Spear, right? I think there's ways to make Player 2 more useful than what they delivered, but I'd be lying if I said we both didn't have a hell of a good time playing together. I would have hated playing as Player 2, but luckily my partner was okay with it. But I'd love to know your own thoughts. Either if you've played the game, you're thinking about getting the game, you love Kirby, you hate Kirby, what you thought of it, and my video overall. Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and hey, subscribe if you're new around here. So next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.